Most people have absolutely no idea how close the United States and Iran once came to direct battlefield confrontation inside Iranian territory itself. Not in the Persian Gulf, not through proxies, not through cyber warfare. Inside Iran, because according to multiple former operators and defense analysts, there was a classified contingency operation so aggressive, so fast, that the entire objective relied on one terrifying assumption. U.S. Army Rangers would have less than 20 minutes to seize control of an Iranian missile complex before the entire region erupted into chaos. And if that sounds impossible, that's because it almost was. We're talking about hardened underground launch facilities, ballistic missile crews on standby, Revolutionary Guard security forces, radar coverage layered across mountain terrain, and enough firepower inside a single complex to threaten U.S. naval assets, Gulf oil infrastructure, and allied bases across the Middle East. But here's the part nobody talks about. The Rangers weren't supposed to occupy the site. They were supposed to hit it like a lightning strike, paralyze the entire complex, extract intelligence, sabotage launch capability, and disappear before Iran could fully react. And once you understand how modern special operations actually work, the speed becomes even more terrifying, because this wasn't about brute force. It was about timing, precision, shock, and overwhelming violence compressed into minutes. Now imagine the scene for a second. It's 2:17 a.m. Somewhere over black desert terrain, low-visibility helicopters are flying beneath Iranian radar coverage. Their rotor blades are slicing through freezing night air, while electronic warfare aircraft jam surveillance systems hundreds of miles away. Inside the helicopters, Rangers sit shoulder to shoulder in complete darkness. No talking, just infrared goggles glowing faint green, weapons loaded, suppressors mounted, satellite maps burned into memory, every second already planned before the aircraft even crossed the border. And far below them, hidden inside reinforced mountain infrastructure, Iranian missile crews continue routine operations without realizing what's coming directly toward them. That alone would be significant, except it didn't stop there, because the missile complex itself wasn't just another military base. According to defense assessments, facilities like these form the backbone of Iran's regional deterrence strategy. Underground launch tunnels, mobile missile platforms, fuel storage chambers, command bunkers, hardened communication nodes. Some are buried so deep conventional airstrikes struggle to destroy them completely, which creates a nightmare scenario for military planners. If intelligence suggests missiles are preparing for launch, waiting could be catastrophic. But bombing the site outright risks missing hidden launch systems. That's why direct action raids became such a serious contingency option inside Pentagon war planning discussions. And this is where things get interesting. A Ranger assault isn't designed like a conventional invasion. It's engineered around shock saturation. The goal is to overwhelm human reaction time itself. Before defenders can process what's happening, doors are breached, communications are severed, power systems collapse, air defenses go dark, and assault teams are already moving room to room. The operation begins long before boots hit the ground. Cyber units target communications. Recon drones scan thermal movement. Satellites monitor vehicle traffic. Signals intelligence tracks command frequencies. Meanwhile, somewhere in the region, carrier strike groups quietly reposition into launch range while fighter aircraft remain airborne waiting for escalation. This is what modern warfare looks like now. Entire battles can begin before the first shot is fired. And according to former special operations planners, timing becomes everything. Because once Iranian forces realize an American ground assault is happening inside their territory, the clock starts ticking immediately, not hours, minutes. Iranian QRF units mobilize fast. Missile crews could attempt emergency launches. Nearby bases could activate air defenses. Regional militias could begin retaliation operations. The longer the Rangers stay inside the complex, the higher the chance the entire mission collapses into open war. So the assault window had to stay brutally short, under 20 minutes. Now think about how insane that actually is. In less time than most people spend watching YouTube intros, an elite force would need to infiltrate hostile territory, breach fortified defenses, eliminate resistance, secure launch systems, gather intelligence, sabotage infrastructure, and extract alive. That level of speed only happens through relentless preparation. U.S. Rangers train for this constantly. Mock compounds, live fire shoot houses, night assault rehearsals, fast rope insertions, tunnel clearing, explosive breaching, close quarter battle under blackout conditions. Every movement becomes muscle memory. And honestly, this is where things become terrifying, because elite special operations raids are often decided in the first 60 seconds. If defenders react too quickly, helicopters get targeted. If breaching teams stall, momentum dies. If command systems survive, reinforcements flood in. That's why overwhelming violence at the point of contact becomes critical. The helicopters approach low over desert ridgelines. Pilots fly nearly blind using terrain following systems, while infrared strobes flicker across landing zones invisible to the naked eye. Then suddenly, the silence breaks. Rotor wash explodes across the ground. Dust clouds erupt into the night. Ramp doors slam open, and Rangers pour into the compound at full sprint. Laser sights cut through darkness. Security towers are neutralized almost instantly. Breaching charges detonate against reinforced doors. Shockwaves echo through concrete tunnels while operators flood underground corridors before defenders can organize resistance. Inside command rooms, Iranian personnel scramble toward emergency communication systems, but electronic warfare teams are already disrupting networks. Lights fail, alarm systems malfunction, confusion spreads through the facility, and this is exactly what the Rangers want. Chaos, speed, psychological paralysis, because once defenders lose situational awareness, the assault force controls the tempo completely. Now, picture the underground sections. Concrete walls sweating from humidity, backup generators vibrating through narrow corridors, missile technicians abandoning consoles, security forces firing blindly through smoke-filled hallways. Meanwhile, Rangers move with terrifying coordination. One team secures launch control, another clears tunnel intersections, another plants demolition charges near missile fueling systems. Intel specialists begin ripping hard drives from command terminals while interpreters identify critical documentation. Everything happens simultaneously. No wasted motion, no hesitation. And here's why this matters. Iran's missile program isn't just about regional intimidation. It's one of the core pillars of Tehran's strategic survival doctrine. Ballistic missiles allow Iran to threaten regional bases, naval groups, oil infrastructure, and enemy capitals without needing air superiority, which means disabling a missile complex, even temporarily, could dramatically shift military balance during a crisis. But the real story is how vulnerable even hardened facilities become once special operations forces penetrate the perimeter, because underground complexes rely heavily on coordination, power, communications, launch sequencing, command authorization. Once those systems fracture, the entire launch chain starts collapsing, and military analysts know this. That's why special operations raids target decision paralysis, not just destruction. The goal is to create so much confusion so quickly that commanders cannot react coherently before the mission ends. But then things escalated, because Iranian Revolutionary Guard units wouldn't just sit idle. The moment communications started failing, nearby rapid response forces will begin mobilizing armored vehicles, security convoys, attack drones, helicopter assets, roadblocks, and suddenly the Rangers are racing against converging enemy forces from every direction. Inside the complex, demolition timers begin counting down. Explosives are attached to launch systems, fuel infrastructure, radar nodes, communications hubs. The objective is no longer simply seizure. It's denial, make the complex unusable. And if you're following this so far, hit that like button, because this level of military coordination is something most people never get to see explained in detail. Now here's where the operation becomes even more dangerous. Extraction. Getting into a target is one thing. Getting out alive is another. Especially once an entire country realizes American forces are operating inside its borders. Iran possesses layered air defenses, mobile anti-air systems, and significant regional surveillance capability. The longer aircraft remain exposed, the greater the danger. That's why exfiltration plans become unbelievably aggressive. As demolition charges detonate underground, shockwaves ripple through the mountain complex. Fires spread across launch tunnels. Emergency sirens echo through collapsed corridors. Above ground, helicopters return under blackout conditions, while fighters patrol nearby airspace prepared for escalation. Rangers sprint back toward extraction zones carrying captured intel, wounded personnel, and sensitive materials recovered from command centers. Dust swirls everywhere. Rotor blades thunder across the valley. Radio chatter intensifies. Pilots scream timing updates over encrypted comms. And somewhere in the distance, headlights appear. Iranian response units are arriving. Now imagine the pressure in that moment. Every second matters. Every delay risks aircraft losses. Every hesitation risks encirclement. And yet these missions depend entirely on discipline under chaos. That's why Ranger selection and training standards are so brutal. Under stress, humans panic. Elite operators are trained not to. And this is the part nobody is talking about. Operations like this are never isolated. They trigger chain reactions. The moment a missile complex is hit, regional commanders begin reassessing everything. Naval fleets reposition. Air defense systems activate. Embassies lock down. Oil markets spike. Cyber units go active. Allied governments demand intelligence updates. And adversaries start calculating whether wider war has already begun. Because a direct raid inside Iranian territory wouldn't just be tactical. It would be geopolitical shock therapy. The entire Middle East would feel the impact instantly. Now think about the military technology supporting something like this. Surveillance satellites tracking movement in real time. Stealth drones feeding thermal imagery. Electronic warfare aircraft suppressing radar. Signals intelligence intercepting communications. Precision-guided munitions standing by offshore. Fighter escorts operating in layered airspace. A single Ranger raid can involve thousands of personnel indirectly supporting the mission across multiple domains. Land, air, sea, cyber, space. Modern warfare is no longer linear. It's synchronized. And what happened next shocked military analysts. Because simulations suggested that if the assault succeeded quickly enough, Iran might initially struggle to determine the full scale of the attack. Was it sabotage? A limited raid? The opening phase of invasion? That uncertainty alone becomes a weapon. Strategic infusion can slow retaliation decisions during the most critical minutes. And those minutes matter. Because once missiles launch, events spiral beyond easy control. That's why rapid domination of command infrastructure becomes essential. If commanders cannot verify systems, cannot communicate clearly, cannot assess damage, they hesitate. And hesitation changes battlefields. But here's the terrifying part. Even a successful raid could still ignite regional escalation. Iran-backed militias across the region could retaliate. Shipping lanes could become threatened. Missile exchanges could begin. American bases across the Middle East could enter high alert immediately. Oil prices could explode globally. International markets could panic. This is why military planners obsess over escalation ladders. One tactical operation can trigger strategic consequences far beyond the original objective. And honestly, this is where things become larger than just Rangers or missile sites. This becomes a story about modern deterrence itself. Because nations are now trying to project power without triggering total war. Precision strikes, cyber attacks, covert raids, drone warfare, economic pressure, information operations. Everything exists in this dangerous gray zone between peace and open conflict. And elite special operations forces sit directly at the center of that world. Fast enough to strike before enemies react. Precise enough to avoid full-scale invasion, but dangerous enough to potentially start one anyway. Now, picture the final moments of the raid. The helicopters disappear back into darkness. Behind them, fires burn across the shattered missile complex. Secondary explosions ripple through underground tunnels. Iranian response vehicles flood the perimeter too late to stop the assault. Radar operators scramble to rebuild situational awareness. Military commanders demand answers. And somewhere inside secure facilities across the region, governments begin preparing for what might happen next. Because nobody knows whether the operation is over, or whether it was only the beginning. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes missions like this so powerful. Not just the destruction, not just the speed, but the psychological impact. The realization that even hardened strategic infrastructure can be reached, penetrated, disabled, before defenders fully understand what's happening. That changes military calculations completely. And if you care about military strategy, geopolitical escalation, and modern warfare analysis, subscribe, because these are the kinds of operations shaping the future of global conflict right now. But the biggest question still remains unanswered. Could an operation like this actually stay limited? Or would one 20-minute raid instantly drag the United States and Iran into a much larger regional war? Because history shows something dangerous about modern conflict. The faster military operations become, the less time world leaders have to stop escalation before events spiral out of control. So here's the question. If a missile complex capable of threatening an entire region was preparing for launch, would a rapid special operations raid be justified? Or would that single strike risk triggering exactly the war was meant to prevent?